Hey everybody, welcome back to another Filming Stories vid. With these I'm usually very laid back, no editing or anything like that. It's just a very, just a raw video. Um, Purely because it's like I don't see the reason to edit it. I mean, I don't want to decorate the story. It's like I'd rather just talk about it and, just be more authentic, because it's real stuff. So, it's better, uh, to be personal, with the video. So, um, but um, but funny enough, talking about editing and videography, that kind of leads into the overall story for today, or at least just the topic, because it's not particularly a story, but it's more about just the um, kind of uh, not kind of the reason why people make films now. Um, I did a video something to this effect a while ago where I talked more about the morality of why people make movies, um, which is more for an exploitive, purpose, and how doing so can be, you know, can be very can really hurt yourself mentally, depending on what it is that you're making, and ultimately how much of yourself you're putting into your work. So, um, and excuse me, also, just before we really get into it, if I seem kind of out of it, Santa Ana winds are high right now, and the humidity was like really low yesterday, so everything in my house was sparky, and I could not, for the life of me, get to sleep. So I'm kind of running off of like some very obscure amount of hours, just kind of, just went to bed like multiple times, trying to fall asleep. So excuse me if my voice seems kind of just off, and if I just seem kind of just kind of out of it. So, but but uh, but getting back to what I was saying though, the point that I really want to touch on is about um, the addictive consequences that spawn from filmmaking. Um, because people don't like to acknowledge the mentality that you take on when you're wanting to be operating in that sense, when you're wanting to tell stories and all that sort of stuff. Everything around you starts to become a story. Like everything that you experience, everything that you see, everything that you witness, your mind, at least maybe it's just for me, but I don't know if it's just how it is or if it was just for me specifically. Um, but everything around me just was a story. It was just a tool. In my head, I was just like, this would be a cool story to tell. You know, Even if it was like something traumatic, or if it was something like something very weightful, very serious, something that I should take in a much different way. Um, like when I was like engulfed in that sort of space, I would always think about, and to some extent, sometimes I still have these moments where it's like I think about the ego, side of me just kind of like just pops up where I'm just like, this would be a cool story to tell. Oh, I would love to like write about this. That exploitive like nature just starts to like come out, and it's it's really gross, and uh like ultimately that, and I've spoken before about um the last film I did, and ultimately how I just kind of stepped away from it because of how exploitive it got, and being recognizing of said nature, um because like you got to let life be. You can't just look at it as like a means to create something, or to do to morph it into something that it's not, like that just kind of diminishes and takes away the value of what you've experienced, or what or takes the whole point of what you've experienced. You know, something that might be very serious, you know, you shouldn't just look at it as like, oh, this is something I can use for a movie or something like that. Like, that's not appropriate. You should be looking at it more as this happened, and this is how I view it, and this is ultimately what I'm going to do moving forward. Like, it's a lesson at the end of the day. You know, it's not something to use. So, um, and I feel like a lot of people do that. You know, I feel like that a lot of people, you know, like you hear about stuff where people are like, I read this, or I was walking, or this happened to me, and then I figured, let me make a story out of that. Let me write this down. It's like, I mean, do you really have to do that? You know, is that really appropriate? Like, the best example I can give is like Honey Boy, when Shia LaBeouf wrote his uh his script based on his life, which, you know, Shia LaBeouf's, you know, you say what you will about him. I mean, yeah, he's kind of a loose cannon, and he's kind of nuts in some respects. Um, but dude's got fucking wisdom. Like, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to like the psychology of an artist, you know, and just like just that sort of industry, that what it means to be in that industry. Like, he knows what he's talking about, you know. Like, I saw that big podcast that he did with John Berthnall. Like, dude's real. Like, dude's actually legit, you know. Um, and he was talking about Honey Boy and how he made it, and ultimately how coming out of that experience, it was completely unnecessary, and how he was actually vilifying his father more than anything, and not really thinking about who his father was. He was using it as a tool, a means to just create art, you know. And I I can say the same things for stuff that I've done, you know, and I see that in work that I've done as well, and it's like it's it's not it's not great. Like, when that realization, it's like it makes you understand how just wrong, you know, and how egotistical, and just how disgusting of a thing you did, you know. Um, it ultimately does, you know, again, like kind of fall into that moral, you know, stance, and that moral feeling, or you know, the morality section. But it's a thing that most people don't have, you know. Like, people just do things, and then years later, then they learn the lessons. You know, it's like nobody wants to actually think about what it is that they're doing. They just want to do stuff. And especially my generation, it's like people just want to just do things. Like, that's, you know, and I get why, because they're looking for that validation. They're looking for somebody to tell them that, yeah, I understand how you feel, or yes, I'm in that same position, you know. Like, they want someone to recognize them, and to see them for who they are and how they're feeling. And they think that using this platform is going to help them. And it doesn't, you know. What it does is twist how your feelings, and twist the truth of it. You know, it's kind of like going to court, you know, like when you go to court, you know, you're not there to get the truth. You're there to just win the argument. You know, like, it's in many respects what filmmaking is. You know, you're just there to present your case, but not necessarily the truth, you know. Um, and Shia LaBeouf was, you know, I love that he was able to recognize that, you know, in his work. He was able to like step back and say, you know, that's not really who my dad is, you know, like, I was just doing stuff for the art. And he sees how wrong of it was. Um, like, I could tell you, like it's not great. Um, but, you know, my grandmother, like, who, I mean, she was amazing, you know, when I got to take care of her for like 2 weeks. We made 3 films together. Uh, and I'll talk more about it in like a future video or something, but not to get too personal here, because it's kind of a touchy subject. More or less, because her it's been about like around this time she actually passed away. So it's been a couple years now since she passed away. Um, but I'm just saying, like when I'm recording this, it's like coincidentally it was actually one of the um, like it's just, it's like the fifth anniversary or something like that. Like 5 years now since she's passed. Um, and I've been thinking a lot about just the nature of what I made, and like there were good intentions there, but ultimately I used my grandma as a a tool of storytelling, like it wasn't appropriate, and I did not, I wasn't I was using her. I wasn't wanting to be there for her in a respect where I'm like I want to, like there was a part of me that did it because I wanted to honor my grandmother and do something, special, um I think more about just like how I went about doing it, like like making the film and then putting it out on festivals and getting all the awards. It's like that's not something that should have occurred, you know. Like if it really was for her, I would have just shown it to the family and then I would have just moved on. I wouldn't have done anything else with it. But because of that mentality, that lack of morality that's there, that's present, that's what happened, and that's not right of me to do. And um, you know, um, I really shouldn't have, did made those movies, at least in that respect, because that wasn't right. Um, so so I can understand, you know, that like it's that stuff, it's stuff like that where I just like I really don't want to like get caught up in that mindset again because I don't wish to exploit. Like I just had to apologize the other day to someone, I won't say who, but someone very special to me. And I had gone through some stuff with this person. I'll just say like, some personal things. I was going through a rough time, so I was not uh in a in a space where I was welcoming or just, like I was toxic essentially. I didn't do anything crazy abusive or anything like that. Don't worry, nothing like that. Um, but you know what I mean, where I'm just like more or less narcissistic and just, kind of emotionally unavailable, and just um, very, passive. Um, and I had apologized to this person like a year ago, and I thought I had made peace with that, but then I revisited that apology that I made, and I realized that I was still holding on to something, and that something was filmmaking. Because I'd asked this person if I could use if I could use something of them in the last film that I was going to make, which was, like I told you guys, a very self reflective sort of thing. And that was wrong, And what I did a few days ago is that I called this person up and they didn't answer the phone, but I left a voicemail saying, so I'm just want to apologize, and I didn't mean to, like if I shouldn't have, asked you for that sort of thing. That wasn't right of me to do. Um, and I'm sorry that I did that. Um, so it's just not a good mindset. Like I don't really like the mindset of a filmmaker. Like I love talking about filmmaking and I love talking about movies, but the overall mindset that comes with being a filmmaker, I just am not like really enchanted by. It's just something that I'm. The more I think about it, the more I feel guilty and just kind of shameful about stuff because it's not. It was purely for the art, and it didn't care. It didn't care about what avenue I had to take. If it had to be exploitive, if it had to be, um, um, if I had to use people, like that's how I went about it, and it's not right. It was not right of me to do that, you know. And it's not to say that was purely like ego driven and stuff like that. I mean, with my grandma, there was obviously some part of me that wanted to honor her, and I wanted to make sure that the last film that we did with my grandma, I wanted to make sure that it was paying respects to her, and that ultimately the film revolved around her character, because her character was very like the seed to those movies. Um, but ultimately, like just the doing, the activity, the nature of it, all of it, it just wasn't a good thing, So, um, and I have not filmed anything now for almost a year, and I'm glad, And like I've said in the past, I'm not against like helping other people out. Like I don't mind doing small things here and there, like doing camera work or whatever like that. Like shit like that I don't mind, you know. I really don't. Like I just that's because I'm not having to like, do any heavy lifting. I'm not having to do the writing. I'm not having to do the acting. Like I'm not having to do things that would promote ego or stuff like that. Like I'd rather someone lead the thing, and then I'm so just point to me what I have to do, you know, because then I don't feel like my ego is like being uh like being flared up and stuff like that. Like I'm just having to serve. Like I'm providing a service. I'm not doing stuff for myself or having to create from my own ego or create from my own this and that. I'm just doing purely what this person wants to do. So at least in that respect, it's it's not harmful because I'm just doing it for someone else. I'm not doing it for my own benefit. So, um, like the benefit is just to socialize. It's just to like hang out with people. So, um, but that overall like mindset, I don't like it. I don't like the feeling of it. I'm glad that I've been removed from it for so long, because ultimately it's just not a good feeling. It's not a good mindset to be in. And like if you want to do filmmaking, that's your business. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say you shouldn't do it, because I'm also a guy who just kind of lets people make their own choices. Um, like I'm just providing my perspective. So, um, and just from experience, like um, just from making short films and all that jazz. Um, but yeah, so not really interested in making movies as much as I am talking about movies, because at least there it's more cynicism, and it's just making a comment on someone else's work, giving a critique ultimately. Where on the other side of the equation, it's to be exploitive, it's to twist the truth, it's to do things that mentally speaking hurt you so much more than than benefit you, because critical thinking is so much more of a benefit um, than than operating on that sort of front, with like having to like change and switch things around. Because then, to some respect, you start to kind of believe it yourself, and that stems from like your ego and all sorts of other things that are driving you. Like it's it's an endless cycle of like just of ego and narcissism and lunacy, really. Um, so you gotta be in the real world, and the real world, you know, purely the real world in my book is that of a cynic. So because people talk ill about cynics all the time, it's like people are like they're like, oh, they're party poopers and stuff like that. It's like, but at least they're talking real. You know what I'm saying? Like at least they're actually saying, like Like are they wrong? Like not all, like sometimes yeah, but in most respects those dudes are not really like they have a point to what they're saying, you know. So, you know, I that's why like I pure I that's why I like the mentality that I have now because choose to be more realistic. I don't wish to listen to my um to my ego or that, you know, if that ever happens, then I try to apologize for it, you know. I always try to keep myself in the real world. And to do that, there is a heavy dose of cynicism that has to be there, you know. Because if it's not, then I'm just a child, you know, and I'm just like thinking this and that, and that's not the right way to go about life. You have to go through life with a certain amount of cynicism, you know. So, because that ultimately keeps you grounded. Whereas with this profession, filmmaking, the art of it, it's to keep you floating, you know, to keep you all just like just in la la land, you know, and really, you know, destroying your mental state and your, you know, your your clarity becomes absent, you know. So, but yeah, uh, I I like I said, if you want to do it, it's your business. But personally, for me, I would say just do it for fun, you know, and consider what it is that you're making. You know, like I echo what I said in the last video, like consider what you're making, you know, but you know, have fun with it. Have some passion for it. I mean, don't just do something for no reason whatsoever. Um, but have the passion and the fun to where it's just a good time, you know. It's not where you're having to like hurt yourself or harm yourself or having to put harm others, you know, in the process. You know, just do it to where it's just a good afternoon, you know, not where you're having to like really lose your shit, you know, and having to like destroy relationships and exploit ultimately those relationships and those experiences that you've had. So, but that's just me. That's just my personal opinion. But uh so yeah, so we've gone on for a long time, guys, so I think that I got my point across. Um but but you guys let me know your thoughts on filmmaking in general. Do you guys think that it's an addictive thing? I think it is, absolutely, but you guys let me know your thoughts. Um and you know, just have fun, guys. You know, just have fun. That's the most important thing. Just have fun. Don't take it too seriously. Just take it seriously enough to where you give a shit, but not where where you're having to hurt yourself and others in the process. So so those are my thoughts, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to bed now because good God, I need some sleep. So so thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video.